Okay, today we are going to learn about how to create some textured effects in watercolor and then just talk about some just general watercolor painting techniques that we haven't talked about so far. So you are going to grab your sketchbook. So this is that paper that's been folded in half. And you can see on the back side I have my value scale and my my 3 intensity scales from yesterday. And I'm just gonna flip this sheet over and I'm gonna use the back side of it. So that is what I'm using today for my paper, is the sketchbook. I'm gonna need paint, water, my paintbrush, and I will find like a napkin or some paper towel to be necessary today. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pencil and I need to make 12 shapes on my piece of paper. It doesn't matter to me how you make those shapes. They can be different shapes, so I can take and I can trace something if I like. So maybe I decide that I want some of my shapes to be circles, and I'm here at school, so I have a roll of tape. You could do this with anything. Maybe you just want to draw boxes. Draw boxes, that's fine. It doesn't matter to me what the shapes are. You just need 12 of them. And they should be like not touching each other, because we're going to paint from one shape to the next. Very much so. So I am making this complicated, more complicated than it really needs to be, actually. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be 5. There's 6. This is 7, 8, 9, 10. I need 11 and 12. So this one will be 11, and this guy will be 12. You can just go ahead and do like normal boxes. They can just be rectangles. Do whatever shapes make you happy. I have 12 shapes on my paper right now. They are 12 shapes that make me happy. There you go. All right, so we are going to start with flat wash. Flat wash is when we just paint one flat color in a surface. So I am going to start here. It doesn't matter to me what colors you use. I'm going to use this as a chance to kind of clean up the colors that I have on my palette. So you're going to see that I'm going to put some water out here in drips on colors that are out here. And I'm going to go ahead and use those. So it doesn't matter to me what colors you use. Flat wash, I'm going to go ahead and just, my paintbrush is going to just go back and forth across the surface of my shape. In level 2, we learned some tricks to make this be perfect with no stripes or marks, but you just are going for reasonably one color. And you'll see very quickly that making perfectly one flat color in watercolor is kind of tricky, actually. It's why we learn about textures, because it's easier to make textures a lot of times than it is to make one flat color. So there you go, flat wash, one flat color. Next, I'm gonna do a variation on that flat wash, and I'm gonna do something called a grated wash. I am actually going to go ahead and use the same color. Remember, I'm trying to do some palette cleanup and not waste paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab the same color. And a grated wash simply means that I want the color to gradually get lighter. So I'm gonna start the same way I did my flat wash, and I'm gonna go all the way across the shape. So you'll notice that when I'm going across the shape that I'm using my paintbrush to kind of carefully outline those edges. That's how we control the color. And now as I move down, I'm gonna start just grabbing water. So instead of going back and getting more paint, now that I'm out of color on my paintbrush, I'm just going back and I'm grabbing clean, fresh water each time. Clean, fresh water, cleaning my paintbrush out as I go. And you can see that by cleaning my paintbrush out as I go and dragging clean, fresh water down, that I have made a wash that started with my dark color and is gradually getting lighter as it goes down the page. I can, if I want this to be a little bit more gradual and not such a stripe, so you can see here, because there's water here, I can pull a little bit more of this color down and kind of perfect my wash a little bit. Kind of clean up my edge. And there we have a graded wash. So it's a wash that, should never go back and mess with wet color. Always wait for it to dry. Just leave a mess in it if you mess with it when it's wet. Rules. All right, graded wash. So it starts dark, gradually gets light because I added water. I am now going to make another flat wash. Okay, so I'm going to switch down here to this other section and I'm going to practice again flat wash. Let's see, what color do I have over here? Kind of a dark purple. I'm going to go ahead and use that. So flat wash, remember, is me just painting with the paint, being careful with my edge, and then I'm just gonna go back and forth. So painting with the edge, making sure my edge is nice and neat, and I'm following the shape that I made for myself, and I'm just painting across. If I start to run out of color, I'm going back to my pile, and I'm getting more color so that my color stays fairly even. Throughout the shape. So that's another flat wash. I am going to now practice another graded wash, and I'm going to do that up here. I am just deciding that I want it to be dark this way and go light this way, so you can see I'm turning my paper. We're going to add to this one, so this one won't stay, just a plain graded wash. So graded wash again. I'm going to start with my color at the top. Color at the top, color at the top. And now instead of going back for color, I am just gradually adding water. So I'm doing a couple of stripes, going back for some clean water, more stripes, all the way down the page. Okay, that's a second graded wash. So at this point, I have a flat wash, a graded wash, a flat wash, a graded wash. And remember, you may use whatever colors make you happy. I'm using the colors that are on my palette that I want to use up and clean off without wasting my paint. So you do whatever works for you. We are moving on to the next shape, and we're going to do something that is actually kind of magical, and it's completely unique to watercolor paint, and it's called wet into wet color mixing. So what I'm going to do is clean my paintbrush off and find a color. Let's see, looking for a different color. Not really finding a different color. There we go, a little orange. And I'm going to start painting with that color in my shape, like a flat wash kind of color. Then I'm going to stop and I'm going to kind of clean my paintbrush off, and I'm going to just use clean water. So I'm putting a clean water section here, which, because it's touching my paint, isn't staying particularly clean. So this is just a watery puddle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to another paint color. So I need a new paint color, and I'm going to paint from the opposite way. It's opposite direction. And watch what happens when I hit that puddle. So this is a unique property of watercolor, and we call this wet into wet paint mixing. So I'm pushing this new color up into the puddle. I have quite a bubble of water over here that I can carefully lift, and you can see my paint color is just going to run together into the next color. This is called wet into wet color mixing. We can add like a splash of a different color if we want. So I have like another color, and I can add some little splatter into this wet, and you'll see that those splatters, they kind of dissipate into the puddle that's there. If it gets really, really puddly, I can take and squeeze my paintbrush dry on some paper towel, and I can run it along this edge where this water puddle is kind of slowly. And then you will see that my paintbrush is sort of sucking up the water that's there. Oops. So that it doesn't like leak all over my sheet. So on your sheet right now, you should have 2 flat washes, 2 graded washes, and 1 section with some wet into wet color mixing.